This week on the Dan Le Batard Show, stop messing with Greg Cote. Seriously, we mean it. Enough. What up, you Dan Le Batardians? Hey, we're back. Don't worry, we're not a God Bless Highlight exclusive podcast. Still talking Dan Le Batard Show. And we will get to what I just teased with how this show has treated Greg Cote so poorly. No, that Nasty Nate and the Dan Le Batard Show stand with Greg Cote. If I had a vote, I would have voted for his frickin' soup. And I'll explain that later, because we got some other stuff to get to. Because this episode has been cooking for a long time. It's been simmering since I teased it 2 months ago in a hot phone booth box in a WeWork in Los Angeles, where I ended the episode saying, is this a new golden era for the Dan Le Batard Show? But then I went radio silence, folks. And that's because podcasting's hard. You've heard Travis Kelce say it. It's the hardest job there is. And I do it alone. I don't have no brother. Well, I have brothers, but I don't have brothers that want to talk the Dan Le Batard Show with me on this podcast and listen to as many podcasts as I do at 3.5 times speed. All right? Kind of crazy in that way. But it's hard to do this on my lonesome, on myself, alone, cutting up all the socials and clips and knowing the goals that I have with this episode and talking about it. And so it's already a lot of work to just sit down and try and talk in a way that I feel is entertaining and entertaining for others. There's a small select few that have been kind enough to find this podcast entertaining, and I appreciate your support and appreciate the ways that this podcast is growing on the YouTube and on Spotify. We've had our biggest episode yet, second biggest episode yet to date recently on Spotify. Good job, fans. YouTube, we're blowing up. But with this episode, I've wanted to put this out there that I think the Dan Le Batard Show is in a new golden era, because there's been a lot of negative talk about it, and I've wanted to change the narrative, but I'm just some guy. But there is this community, the Dan Le Batard Show Reddit, and I want to talk to you, Dan Le Batard Show Reddit. This is the question I'm posing to you. Is this a new golden era for the Dan Le Batard Show? I've seen all your posts, all your complaints, but I want you to think about things differently. So many of you are focused on just the Dan Le Batard Show, and you're missing everything else that is out there now. If you're a Dan Le Batard Show fan, chances are you're a fan of the show, you're a fan of Stu Gatz, and you've given his new show, Stu Gatz and Company, a chance. You're a fan of Pablo Torre Finds Out, and what a heater that show's been on. And if you're a fan of the Dan Le Batard Show, you've at least heard of and know about Nothing Personal. You maybe don't listen to it. You might hate David Sampson. Many of you probably do. And so you got some zealots out there who like it. I like it. I listen to it. I listen to all those podcasts every time they come out because I listen so fast. But I think if you take the totality of those podcasts and the entertainment they provide, you can say this is a new golden era for the Dan Le Batard Show. So let's break it all down. Dan Le Batard Show. I think the show's been really fun in and of itself. I know I miss Jess, but they've now got weekly regular hits with her. I like that. There was a gap where when she moved there was inconsistency, but the show's gotten consistent with having Jess on. She's consistent on Mystery Crate. It's less of her, but I'm glad that she has a consistent role in the show. Lucy is back. I'm glad she has a consistent role in the show. But that shipping container, they're there, folks. And it seems more consistent, which is what a lot of you have been complaining about. And I think they're doing a fun job. And you know what? Who I have seen step up? Mike Ryan. You've stepped up. Mike Ryan's been maybe one of the most consistent people being there, and Billy Gill. You give me more Mike, you give me more Billy, that's going to lead to success. And the addition of Zaslow is freaking hilarious. Thai food. Although, like the show has clearly pointed out, Zaz, you got no freaking clue what Thai food is. But I love it. His movie theater sells pickles. It's a good deal, apparently. The show's been fun. I love what Zaslow brings to the show. I think Zaslow's hilarious with his tone and the things that he talks about. I think the Dan Le Batard show has been great just in and of itself. I think it's been improved and has started to hit a new stride. So for me, I think that's good. I love the addition of Zaz. Do I miss Stu Gotts? Yeah. Do I wish he was there? Yeah. But you know what? I'm going to be positive and focus on what I do have, which is Stu Gotts and Company, right? Which, while I may miss the interaction between Stu and Dan in this show, I now have the Dan Le Batard show, which I still feel with Zaz is at a high level, but I now have Stu and Company, an entirely new podcast that has been consistent 2 hours a week and does some really fun content. It's classic Stu. Like, he's laughing and they're doing tears and okay, here's an honest moment for me. They started talking so much tennis that it took me like 2 or 3 episodes to realize, when instead of going from hour 1 and hour 2, they changed it from set 1 to set 2. I'm like, wow, they're really focusing on the tennis aspect with how much tennis they're talking. They're going to go tennis themed with their hours, set 1, set 2, until they started putting stuff in as encores. Then I'm like, oh, Dad and Company, it's a music set. It took me a while to get there, folks, but your Nasty Nate got there. But listen, the co-hosts and guests on Stu Gotts and Company have been elite. Again, if you're a Dan Le Batard show fan, you love a Joe Buck hit. Joe Buck is funny. He's entertaining. Bomani Jones coming on Stu Gotts and Company. Come on now. And, folks, I haven't even gotten to the best part. Mark Hochman regularly with inside some form of Dan Le Batard show and Stu Gotts without Dan Le Batard format. Hey. Mark Hochman regularly with Stu Gotts. Love it. That is a great combination. Izzy regularly. Like, I enjoy Stu Gotts and Company. So, right? If you're a fan who's been down on the Dan Le Batard show, between just those 2 podcasts alone, you could probably find easily an hour or 2 that would entertain you and suffice. There need to be people out there that regularly tell the Reddit, hey, these are the best hours in Stu Gotts and Company and the best hours in Dan Le Batard show. You should give these a listen because it's going to be what you're looking for in terms of that old classic show. Like, put the alert out every time Hawkman is on Stu Gotts and Company because it's great, right? And the show, Dan Le Batard's been doing great shows too. And guess what? I've only covered 2 shows. If it was just those 2 shows, even though it is different, there's so much content that you can find something that is entertaining for you within that. Is it maybe a little bit more work for some fans? Not for me. I listen to it all. I enjoy it all. Actually, it's still a lot of work for me because I listen to it all. So I got to wake up early, play things at super fast speeds to blow through it. But I enjoy it. Pause to drink my drink there. So we've covered only 2 out of 4. And I could tell you right now, that's a golden era if it's all about how you view things. But then, oh my gosh, let's get to, honestly, the creme de la creme, which only exists because of Meadowlark, and that is Pablo Torre Finds Out. When Pablo Torre Finds Out first came out, it was a revelation, right? We all remember that first podcast that got us hooked, where it was like, oh my gosh, what is this podcast? I remember for the longest time, I did not want to listen to Serial. Why? Because everybody was talking about it. Oh, it's so good, right? But then I finally broke down and listened to it. And there's just that feeling when something hooks you in, it hooks your interest and you want to hear it. And that's what Pablo Torre was, but for sports. There was nothing like it. Pablo Torre brought something unique to the sports podcasting landscape. And it was fascinating. And you were like, how is this dude going to top himself with the things that he did? Like on the Commanders purchase, that episode was fascinating. His first episode with Dan in the Trump interviews was funny. The Sharon Tells, which by the way, there hasn't been as many Sharon Tells because his episodes have been so freaking amazing. Pablo Torre has not changed, but he's fundamentally impacted. Like, he is coming up against the biggest sports in America, and he is winning. He is doing episodes about the NFLPA, the Players Association, and people are getting fired. He is talking about the Clippers and investigations are happening. And guess what? Steve Ballmer and the Clippers, he got you. Smoking gun. Boom, 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 boom. Pablo Torre and David Sampson and Amin with him. Oh my gosh. Mwah. Like, if just Pablo Torre finds out was all that remained from Dan Le Batard show, if everything else fell into the ocean, their fists sinking under those beautiful waters, but Pablo Torre remained, I would tell you and sit here, Nasty Nate would sit here and say, a golden era for the Dan Le Batard show remains. Because this podcast is here because of Dan, because of the Dan Le Batard show. And it is literally one of the best podcasts happening right now, besides Cinephobe. But that's a whole nother episode. Pablo Torre finds out is incredible. And everything he's doing. I mean, I have this whole idea of someday talking to Pablo Torre, but you know, I have these ideas, but then they just sit as ideas because in that way, if I don't act on them, they still stay an idea and they still stay a possibility, right? But once I start doing those plans, putting the requests out, right, the reality will set in. And sometimes I hesitate on these things because it's like the nervousness of putting an idea out there to see, will this idea actually happen or will it just die when I put it out there? But maybe someday Pablo Torre would be out here on the Fan Le Batard show and I'd ask him this question. Is there a more potent force in the sports media landscape than Pablo Torre's curiosity? You tell me. And you hear Pablo Torre saying, you know, the Clippers would have gotten away with it if not for me. And this is what I say. They would have gotten away with it if not for us, the fans. Because we made you who you are, Pablo. The Dan Le Batard show, that sticky fan audience, we loved you from the very start. I know we had that whole sounder for you with when you talked all hoity-toity, the Harvard sounder. That was really great by me. But we loved you, Pablo. And we helped lift you up. And look where we brought you. We brought you to the top, the tippy top, where you're taking down the NBA, the NFL. Pablo Torre, stand up, take a bow. Oh my goodness. Like he said, it's better than having a kid, what Pablo Torre is doing. Earmuffs. And last but not least, the podcast that I know you know about, Nothing Personal. Hey, it expanded to 2 hours, and maybe it's the cause for everything else that's happening with Dan and Stu. But guess what? I listen to it. I like it. I like the new format. It's different. Check it out. They have good guests. The episode with Coach Cal a couple weeks ago, I thought Coach Cal said some interesting things. David Sampson gets interesting things out of his guests. The new format is good. Wednesdays, David Sampson, he does a great job responding to questions. He does a great job framing things, helping you see a different perspective. He's really good at what he does. I enjoy it. But I also listen to it exclusively at 3.5 because he just talks slow and it's just him talking, right? So I don't need to listen to that podcast any slower. The only time I listen to that podcast slower is if whoever is in charge of the Le Batard and Friends podcast network. Can we be consistent, please? For my sake, hey, I'm a fan of everything you guys do. I want to listen to everything you guys do. You have this network, and yet you don't consistently put every single episode of David Sampson since he's gone 2 hours in there? And even when it was 1 hour, it was not consistent. Can someone consistently out of the 47 employees? I know. This is not water, folks, that I'm drinking. Can we just be consistent in putting that in there? Because David Sampson recently on Spotify, he switched over to putting his video in there. And what does that do? It slows me down to 2.0. So if it's not put in the Le Batard and Friends network, I can't listen to it at 3.5. And if that show is not at 3.5, it eats up way too much of my time. Because I can listen to that show at 3.5 and still retain a ton of what he's saying. Because again, it's one person talking. If it's one person talking, baby, crank that bad boy up all the way to 3.5. I listen to things at 4.0 for audiobooks. My mind is elite. All right? And all that content, that's why I think the Dan Le Batard show is in a new golden era. There's been a lot happening. You could be negative about the Stu Gatz thing and complain about this. I don't want to complain. I didn't really complain. I just talked about it, asked some questions. But I hate doing that. My perspective of this show and me as a fan is, I'm a fan. You don't need any complaints from me. You need me to tell you what I love. And I love this show. And it's a golden era. And I think it's fantastic. And no complaints. Okay? But a complaint. Greg Cote. Leave him the hell alone. Back off of Greg Cote. A week ago, I was going to do this episode several weeks ago, and I was going to roast Greg for him talking bad about robots. I'm like, you dead? Yeah. I mean, if we're going to be real, Greg Cote, probably, he's old. Okay? Take care of yourself, Greg. Drink water, just like Chris says. Like, how hard is that? Drink your freaking water, Greg. All right? Damn. But you had to roast the robots. We don't know when they're taking over. It could be sooner than we think. There's some crafty people, MFers, crafty robots. You got to respect them, Greg. Respect your robots more. But that was several weeks ago. And then Chris Cote comes in and takes this bro's laptop and threatens his livelihood. That was messed up. I stand with you, Greg. I know you debriefed it, and it seems like you maybe recognize you didn't need to get upset, but I stand with you, Greg. That was messed up. That was rude. Agitating Greg Cote in that way. But then, you know what takes the cake is this sham of a soup contest. That's right, a sham of a soup contest. Greg, you got to be smarter. All right, you got to recognize when the show is setting you up. You should have abstained and said, you know what? I'm not doing it today. You can't have my soup because I know the way this is going. Mike Ryan. If you're on the Instagram, he was, Mike Ryan, were you cooking that soup and parts of that soup the day before? That's messed up. Billy Gill mentioned it. 1, if you're going to do a competition on the show, Billy Gill's right. You need a time frame. Everything has to be done in the same time frame. You go to these cooking shows, Chopped. There's a timer. If you're going to make it competitive and you're going to put a vote, you've got to level the playing field by having some sort of timer, making it consistent. Because guess what? Especially for freaking soups. 1, soups are so freaking varied. The show's made a joke about soups because they go, is cereal a soup? That's how varied soup is. And you're going to do some competition that has no ground rules for one of the most varied foods you can try. And everybody knows with soups, Mike mentioned it, you can let them sit, you can let them soak, the flavors get better. Greg's soup, I don't know, Greg's soup could have gotten better. But that being said, there's also a large variety of soups. Like I've already said, going back to what I've already said, and that being said, I'll now say this. Messed up the 2 soup choices. Greg had lentils, kale, I think, and sausage. That's a very specific type of soup. I know what I'm getting into when I'm trying that soup. And then Mike goes with his Thai-inspired soup with coconut milk, some lime zest that didn't even get on it, the chicken, the peppers, these other things that are in it. That's a whole nother category of soup, all right? You got to set the ground rules here of like, there's got to be something in common, right? These other cooking competitions, popcorn, they both had popcorn, right? And I think they were both like a savory popcorn, right? Somebody didn't do a kettle corn or a caramel corn and then go up against a jalapeno cheddar corn. Those are two different types of popcorns. It depends what you're feeling, right? They both cooked turkeys, Roy and Greg. They were both turkeys, right? It wasn't some ice cream turkey versus a regular turkey. They were both savory turkeys. The same. But these soups are not the same. Not even close. It's like, oh, hey, I'm going to make a lobster bisque versus a chicken noodle. Get the hell out of here. That's not a competition. You see all these cooking shows. You want to make them a fair competition, you give them a common ingredient, something they both have to work with. That's a true test of a chef's ability, right? You can't have this and you say, oh, best on best. Not with soups. They're too different. You can't freaking do that with soups. And then you add on top of it that Mike Ryan, I'm a soup of Mike Ryan's. For whatever reason, there was some sort of glitch in my Twitter thing. I lost the ability to be a soup for Twitter for a couple days, but it fixed itself on its own. But as a soup, I know, Mike, you're a good cook. You're a good cook. I know it. Now everyone else knows it. Soup or not. But you pick. That's like a cheat code, bro. And Dan even said it. The coconut milk, the Thai, the flavors, the umami that produces. Again, whole nother category, right? And Greg comes in. Did Greg know what soup you were making? And when did he know it? Because maybe Greg would have changed his soup of lentil. Dan even said this too. Lentil. Dan, you were on top of it, but you allowed this to happen because this is what you do. You knew what this would do, Dan. And you let it happen anyway. Shame on you, Dan Le Batard. Shame on Dan. Your best friend, Greg Cote. You saw it. You knew it. You gave all the hints that were there, Dan. You knew Greg didn't stand a chance in this soup competition. Why? Different categories of soup, right? Man, you make that Thai soup, right? With the coconut milk. That's one of the best freaking soups you can have. It's addictive. That's what umami is. It's an addictive flavor. It mixes that sweet and savory, creates a whole new kind of flavor that you just crave. Kale, lentil, and sausage can't compete with that because it's another category. If it's what you want, it's good. Can't hold up. It's like what? Are you going to have a pho, somebody make a pho versus a clam chowder? Those are totally different categories. What's the environment in which I'm having this? The environment matters for soups. What time of year is it? That matters for soups. You're going to have a soup competition. Out of all the food competitions you could have, soup is the food competition that requires the stringiest of rules. The stringiest? The stringy? Stringiest of rules. And there was no rules on this thing. Mike was doing, and Mike, furthermore, you know what? Negative points for doing a bear impression when you hate the bear. And I'll agree with you. You were right about the show. I've still watched all the seasons, but I totally agree with Mike Ryan on his take of the bear. It's too full of itself. But shame on you for doing some sort of the bear impression, saying you can't say yes, chef. You can't talk your stuff about the bear and then say yes, chef. You're not allowed. So knock that off right now. Yes, Mike? But on top of all these things I've already laid out, you go with Thai food. Like you were going to win alone on just the Thai food aspect of it. And Zaslow is the deciding vote with the beef and the history that they have. You can't bring in a Kugler. Did Kugler? I've had talk to Kugler. Kugler has stricken me as nothing but a fair, honest, good-natured gentleman. Zaslow, love him. Think he's hilarious. His relationship with Greg, he would absolutely choose against his soup even if he freaking loved it. To spite him. And this is what you've allowed to do? I'm sick. Sick to my stomach. And even sick to hear that how much this affected Greg. And Greg, I want to let you know I freaking stand with you, Greg. It's garbage what happened. Throw it out. Greg, you won. If you could have tried the soups, tell me right now, comment, vote. Would you have chosen Greg's? You'd have chosen Greg's, right? Bullshit. Sorry. I'm mad, okay? Hey, back to that golden era thing. Also, another thing I didn't mention. We get 2 weekend observations now, which is kind of like, hey, the show's divorced because we have 2 weekend observations, but it's a golden era. Hey, they're both good, by the way. And that's just more content for you. Dueling observations. Amin does a great job with it. And Stu does his thing still with it. Dueling observations. Lastly, hey, the show launched a new football podcast. Can you be a football Christian and a football American, or do you have to choose? Can you only God bless football, or can you be a red-blooded football American? I listen to both. You know me. Nasty Nate's going to always listen to both. But do you have to pick? No, you don't have to pick, folks. You can listen to both. And I like football America. I think Dave Damashek does a good job. Damn, Dave. I like how he starts it with his little monologue. His first one with the Shawshank Redemption analogies that he threw in there, or whatever you want to call them. Shout outs. He does a good job. It's entertaining. It's well formatted. The news, different things there. It's got just the right amount of Fuentes in it. And his brother. Hey, good to hear from you finally, Gino. I enjoy Football America. And I think I'm running out of steam, folks. Golden era for the Dan Le Batard Show. I did it. Finally released it. Raise the positivity in the Dan Le Batard Show Reddit, folks. I'm going to maybe put a promo in the Reddit there and try to spark some engagement there. If you're a fan of the show, check out the Reddit. Vote it. Comment that you think it's a golden era too. Nasty Nate, always a fan of the Dan Le Batard Show. And you guys need to come up with a competition for Greg to win. Shame on you. With what Greg has given to this show, for you to have him go 0-5 in all these competitions, if Greg Cote does not win, I'm going to pound the table like O'Shea. Anybody else catch that? Somebody was pounding that table in the latest South Beach sessions. If you don't let Greg win a competition, we will riot. Nasty Nate out.